deck, allowing you to generate a lot of extra card advantage as well as hitting extra land drops. When everything is going basically according to plan, that's really where you're going to see this deck shine. Usually you're going to see this deck kind of falter when it misses land drops, and it looks like it's only got one land to start here, so that might be this game.
Well, this is arguably, maybe inarguably, the big test for this deck. On the other side of the table, we have Tomohiro Tsuda playing Sultai Ramp. Public enemy number 1.
Yeah, this build of Sultai Ramp, I'm trying to see if there's anything outlandish. It looks like it's fairly stock. You know, it's playing a lot of the same effects that we're used to seeing. Agonizing Remorse as a 4 of is something we're seeing more and more of, just this card in general. And here, it doesn't actually look like it's all that good. There's a bunch of redundant effects with the mana creatures, as well as 2 copies of Risen Reef. So it'll be interesting to see if he wants to attack the mana, and I think that's what he's going to go for.
So really interesting interaction I want to point out here. We won't necessarily see it, at least in this game, shortly, but Tsuda's playing 4 copies of Narset. We're starting to see that in the format. And Risen Reef is actually a really interesting way to combat that, because you don't draw the card if you miss on a land, you simply put it in your hand.
Yes, one does not simply draw a card.
So there's an attempt on Risen Reef that's going to eat a Mystical Dispute, and Tsuda has picked up a Narset.
Yeah, the Narset here, though, like you said, doesn't really shut down the Risen Reef. So if this Risen Reef's able to stick around, Maxwell might actually be able to get the engine online, even though they've been missing a lot of land drops.
It's like Risen Reef misses on the land, picks up Cavalier's Thorns. Now the hand is just full of 5 mana stuff. It's going to be tough to start casting these. Tsuda has picked up a Shark Typhoon off of the first Narset activation. Here's another look at 4 cards. Likely going to start going to work with these Uros.
Yeah. Tsuda looking for removal sway her off the Narset, unable to find it. Choices Narset or Shark Typhoon. That means that Hummel might have one more turn to get this Risen Reef going before it dies. If they are able to draw a red source, they can play Omnath, maybe finish off the Narset, and getting that extra card off the Risen Reef. Doesn't seem too bad.
Second Shark Typhoon picked up. Intention to make a 3/3 Shark face up here as Tsuda shocks in a breeding pool. Hummel finally finds land number 4, still 1 off of these terrors as Cavalier. Could jam this Omnath, though. Actually, no, strike that. There's no red mana.
Yeah, no red mana is the big deal. Terror of the Peak's kind of rotting in hand. The Omnath stuck. Cavalier Thorns needs 1 more mana. Aether Gust has no targets. We're in not a good spot here if you are Maxwell Hummel.
Aether Gust left up over adding Yori into hand as we see Tsuda make that first 3/3 Shark.
You know, this Team Rare Elementals deck's 3-0. I cannot imagine that the deck is 3-0 after having draws like this the whole day. I imagine that this is in the probably bottom 10% of the draws of the deck. And I am very much looking forward to seeing a more explosive game number 2, because like this game already feels over. I don't know if it is over. Like a lot of things can happen over the next few turns. You know, Tsuda could just have no interaction, which they currently don't. But like we just see dead draw after dead draw after dead draw, you know? There it is. It's just the tight concession.
This was a mulligan to 6, and yeah honestly, I feel like making this a Yorian companion deck is to reduce the overall volume of spells that cost 5 or more in the deck. Yeah, because you want to play all these terrors, you want to play these Genesis Ultimatum, but you want to draw them at a reasonable ratio, and that just didn't happen in that game.
Yeah, not only draw them at a reasonable ratio, but also to just like not draw them and find them at like off of Genesis Ultimatum instead. You know, if you play a bunch, basically playing 80 cards means that you're roughly playing, 60 to 75% of like your normal amount when you play 4. And so now with like 4 Cavalier and 4 Terror of the Peaks, you're kind of getting to the point where you have closer to, instead of 8, you're more so looking closer to like 10 or 11, just as far as distribution is concerned. So like you're gonna draw them like a little disproportionately, I think, but in like a good way.
See some interesting sideboarding from Tsuda. Whereas some main deck negate, it looks like one is maybe still sticking in, because you do want to fight over Genesis Ultimatum, though the opposition is largely creatures in this Elementals deck.
Yeah, that's the tough thing. I think you just need to use Dispute and Ether Gust to fight. I don't think you want Negate. Like, Genesis Ultimatum is good, but like, it's like the only instant sorcery in the deck that Negate's going to be able to tag that matters. You know, everything else is a creature. You might want like one or two, but I think like just leaving a bunch of negates in your deck is just a good way to lose the game with a bunch of negates rotting in your hand, you know?
I think I want to see if I can get Ross Miriam or Corey Baumeister to play this 80-card Elemental deck on Versus Live Tuesday or Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I want to see more of this deck. That first game, that left me yearning.
Yeah, I mean, this Team Elementals deck, like, that game one was not impressive. But, like I said, there's no way that they're 3-0 in the Soul Tie format, you know, without having some good draws. And we'll see if they're able to hit those good draws here.
Here's a keep. Arboreal Grazer. One you don't see as often as you used to, but it's lining up with some lands.
Yeah, card's pretty good when you're playing Risen Reef, though, because it's able to put those extra lands that you find into play early to ramp. But you just have so many extra cards later that, like, the Arboreal Grazer is rarely going to be a dead card, whereas in some decks when you play ramp, like after turn 2, Arboreal Grazer is just dead.
You see Grazer into Druid. There's expensive spells in the hand. This Terror of the Peaks potentially castable next turn. Though Agonizing Remorse probably gonna have something to say about that.
I'm just gonna take that one.
Ooh, an Uro off the top though. That's pretty nice. I was just gonna say, you know, the hand, it's still a little bit of a walk to Genesis Ultimatum, and we are not yet making up cards for the Grazer. There is sort of a card disadvantage element there with the 0-3 not mattering. But this Uro, that at least replaces itself.
Yeah, Omnath here also not going to do a ton because there aren't targets for the damage ability, so it's just going to have to hit face for 2 or whatever. But as the game progresses, as both players interact with each other, that Euro could come back. You know, if a couple more lands are hitting the battlefield, the Omnath could start drawing cards later. You know, maybe Genesis Ultimatum goes off and actually does something really cool next turn. You never know. A lot more blue mana is needed before that happens, though.
So Tsuda considering possibly maybe eliminating the Leafkin Druid, just gonna leave up 3 mana here. Leaving up Mystical Dispute is pretty strong. Temple of Abandon is going to leave a Cavalier of Thorns on top and Yorion added to the hand over deploying Omnath.
I don't mind using the Eliminate on the Leafkin Druid. I mean, it does target Risen Reef, which is a big deal, right? But you don't want to push them towards the Euro too much. Especially when your hand is really bad. Your hand is 4 lands and a Mystical Dispute and nothing in the graveyard of consequence.
Right. Triome picked up. It is kind of interesting. If the Triome was in hand last turn, cycling that over Eliminate, maybe that could have been the play. But Eliminate was fired off. Now we see Cavalier of Thorns picked up. Do you dispute this is the question.
I mean, it's big. And it also puts a bunch of extra cards in the graveyard for the Euro. I think it's a pretty slam dunk. Pretty easy slam dunk.
It gets disputed. I gotta say, I would have liked to have seen this Grazer attack at least once.
It's about sending a message. You know what I'd like? A rule that says if a creature has 0 power, it just has Defender.
Yeah.
That's what I would.
Every time, now and again, I don't know if you've queued into this one, but some folks play mutate decks that start on Arboreal Grazer and Gilded Goose, and I'm always pretty mad when I get hit by a giant mutated Grazer.
Yeah. I'm just gonna agree. Art agree.
Well, I mean, that was me agreeing with you, so it'd be really weird if you went back and disagreed with me at the end of it.
Oh, right. No, you're right. Look, I'm just not used to people being on the same page as me. I get a lot of pushback on like every opinion I've ever had.
Well, you know, I think that a part of doing my job well is agreeing with you.
Aw. So you only agree with me because you have to?
Well, I don't want to disagree with you.
Okay. So all right, listen. So he knows about the Genesis Ultimatum, right?
Yeah.
So Extinction Event just has to name even here to keep him off of the Paradise Druid, to keep him off of Genesis Ultimatum. Otherwise, you're just gonna lose with 2 Heartless Acts in hand.
Yeah, Paradise Druid's hexproof, making these Heartless Acts look pretty silly.
Oh, greed! The greed.
Tsuda's going to try to play the long game. There is no 7th mana source here just yet, and actually, it would have to be an untapped blue source. Genesis Ultimatum is triple blue. Leakin Druid and Omnath deployed.
I'm trying to find how many. 4 Fabled Passage. 4 Breeding Pool, 4 Steam Vents, 3 Island. Those are the untapped blue sources. So quite a few, honestly. More than I expected. That is a ouchie.
I love that.
That's a lot of damage.
Activated. I'll take 4 for a card. I can Heartless Act your stuff later. Also, now I think we're going to Extinction Event for even. Yeah, there it goes.
That's not bad. Not bad on this board. A lot better than it was last turn. Never punished.
So, when you have to name something like that, Extinction Event is odd or even, the player says an emote, but Extinction Event has this animation that kind of covers that field. Every time it happens, I think that my opponent is emoting for Rubbins.
Yeah, just a GG. Eat it. Even. Eat it.
Oops. I always expected to say oops.
Nice. Well, luckily for Hummel, there is no pressure. There's no Euro from the opponent. There's no Nisu Shakes the World. There's no Shark Typhoon. There's not really a whole lot of anything. Just a handful of lands and some Heartless Acts. So even though the 7th mana source and 3rd blue source here is Temple of Mystery entering the battlefield tapped, may have the ability to cast it next turn. The Genesis Ultimatum, that is.
Temple of Mystery, leaving Temple of Mystery, so there's going to be a Scry this turn, potential attempt at the Ultimatum next turn. I'm curious, I liked what you were saying about Hummel having time, but this cast of Yorion feels really aggressive to me.
This is the weirdest blink I've ever seen. Just play your land. Just play your land. Getting really tricky. I would have loved to have seen the hardest punish of all time with like a Tail's End or something. Oh, hey, look, another best card in the deck.
Genesis Ultimatum left on top. So we see Castle Locthwain for Tsuda. We need a counterspell though. Ooh, Mystical Dispute. That'll do for the first Ultimatum.
Yeah. I feel so bad for Maxwell right now. Fine, he's like, finally!
Like, I think this is the experience that Hummel signed up for. Correct? I don't know. Maybe you disagree, but...
Dude's 3-0. Do you think he signed up for these draws? These draws that he's had have been horrible. But luckily, he's had time to draw out of them. Like, both times. He actually conceded what I would say actually is pretty early last game, considering, like, the only thing he was facing down was a 3/3 Shark. And his hand was like a bunch of Terror the Peaks or whatever.
I'm taking a draw agnostic approach to that comment. I'm just saying, if your Genesis Ultimatum gets Mystical Disputed and you think that's a story worth telling to me, I am less interested in hearing your stories.
Oh, so you're saying that's just justice.
That's just life, man.
Right. But you spend so much time and energy, getting this Genesis Ultimatum set up, and then your opponent counters it for 1 mana, and you think that that's just like...
I forgot to put gas in my car. My car broke down. My life sucks. Oh, well, yeah.
No, this is
maybe
more
we
of
could have put gas in.
This is a more of COVID took my job, and I don't have any money to put gas in my car situation.
I would advise moving off of that joke. I think that that's wholly disagreeable as a comparison.
That's fair. I'm mostly just saying that the format is so warped that 4 copies of main deck Mystical Dispute is not only a thing, it is the thing. And on top of that, like, Ether Gust is also the thing. So, like, people just, like, can't play their Genesis Ultimatums because of Mystical Dispute and Ether Gust. That's all I was really implying.
Yeah, you can still put them in your commander deck.
Sure can.
That's
put them in your standard
allowed.
deck, too.
Yeah, and here they are. And this next one, if not for this agonizing remorse, might have resolved. I really enjoy how much life Tsuda has lost to Castle Lochthwain in this game. I think like over 10 life, something like 12 or 14 life off of Castle this game.
I know one was like a 5 damage and another one was like a 4 damage. A lot of life has been lost to the Castle Lochthwain, but honestly, it was there to find like the Mystical Dispute at the right time for the Genesis Ultimatum, so that's pretty good.
And Narset finds Mystical Dispute. Yeah, Tsuda is not interested in letting a ultimatum come off the top from here. Ooh, and you hate to see this. This one I am more sympathetic towards, because I know I've cycled into a Narset, but there's that red blinking, the most tilting thing in all of Magic, really, when Narset tells you you can't draw a card. Mazemind Tome picked up for Tsuda.
You just hate to see it.
Narset finds Nissa, and Hummel has now had enough. Tomohiro Tsuda advances to 4-0 on Sultai Ramp for Maxwell Hummel. Hummel will fall to 3-1. Has some opportunity. There's 3 rounds left. Maybe we'll see more Team Elementals. I don't know. I feel like that my 7-mana blue spell got disputed story is pretty common when you attempt things like this.
Okay, I'm just gonna let it go. You're right. Yes, it sucks. It sucks that your Mystical Dispute, or that your 7-mana spell got hit with the Mystical Dispute. Like, yeah, that sucks. That's all.
I don't know. I think that this was before you rolled out of bed, but we also saw Eli Cassis casting some emergent ultimatums earlier today, and that didn't look great either.
I mean, that's fair, but like, no one was like, yeah, Eli Cassis is a big blockhead for playing 7.
Hey, I'm not calling anybody a blockhead. I'm saying these decks are more fun than good. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, that is fair. And this Team Elementals deck, it might actually be more fun than good. It is 80 cards. It is Yorion. There's 4 copies of Terror of the Peaks. Just Ultimatum gets hit by every hate card that everyone plays in their main deck because they're all way too good. But yes, it is probably not that great. But there's no way that they are 3-0 with the draw that they had in that match. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, the other draws were likely better. I also remind you, I got to nitpick your editorializing here on my comments. I was jazzed when this deck list came up. I agree.
I was too. I am very disappointed. I wish that it had gone way better.
Mystical Dispute, and for me personally, Ether Gust is a very frustrating card to play against.
It is, and I think that it's one of those things where Mystical Dispute, I think, was really, I guess, like, miscalculated when it was first previewed. I think people kind of understood that it was going to be like a gainsay, right? It was going to be a sideboard card that you play a bunch in blue on blue matchups, and it was going to be a really great tool for those post sideboard games. But if you really just like play with the card a little bit, you start to understand that a 3-mana counter